Greetings and welcome to the Quest for Wisdom podcast, where we search for nuggets of wisdom from the lives of some truly amazing people. Today's guest is Rosana Corbacho. Rosana is a clinical and humanistic psychologist who specialises in mental health support for the music industry. Her passion for this led her to found MI Therapy. Her practice focuses on treating addiction, anxiety, depression, and other disorders, as well as personal development for both music creatives and other people in the music industry. Rosana has been invited to talk and hold workshops at Berklee University, Primavera Sound, Mutek, ADE, BIME, to name but a few. She leads group therapy sessions for Spotify Equal and collaborates with high-tier UK and US tour managers at the Back Lounge Music Touring and Events Group. She has received the Key Change Inspiration Award by Amazon Music at BIME Bilbao 2022. Rosana is a human radiating with compassion and kindness. I hope you enjoy our conversation. For more details about Rosana, check the description of the podcast. Thank you. Hello, and welcome, Rosana Corbacho. Corbacho, to the 7th episode of the Quest for Wisdom podcast. How does that make you feel?
Well, I'm very excited, Connor. When I received your email, I was like, oh my God, I forgot about this. So it's really, really nice to be here. Yeah.
That's amazing. So did you see what I did there? A little bit of reverse psychology on the psychologist. How do you feel? Because you are a human and you are a psychologist, specifically for the music industry. Are there any other labels you'd like to throw on yourself other than human and psychologist?
I like to label myself as funny.
Funny, okay.
Yeah, I use humor in a way sometimes to just cover some nerves when I have to do some public speaking or when I have to speak in English in front of everyone and I am the only one who is no native English. So maybe it's a nervous thing.
Does this count? Does this count as public speaking?
It's quite private.
Okay.
If a lot of people is just looking through that glass, maybe it will feel a little bit more public.
Okay, but hopefully we can expect some humor from you today then. I just need to make you feel a little bit more nervous. And then we get some humor from you. But we met 2.5 years ago, I believe, at a music event. I think you saw me looking a bit lonely because I was doing the ticketing for a friend's music event, and you came over and we struck up a conversation, and you were telling me about your work as a psychologist in the music industry, specifically for DJs, is it?
I don't work only with DJs, but I have a lot of experience working in a booking agency that had plenty of DJs. It's the biggest in Spain. And then my background when I was in London and working at labels and everything else, it has been always with electronic music. But now in my practice, I work with any and every kind of music, musician, and anyone who works in the music industry. So the only requirement for coming to see me, well, first is that I have a space. And then is that you are working in the music industry in anything. So I can see people from classical music or from bands, but of course I feel DJs are a particular field within a specific field. And because I have this experience and years with them, working with them and even touring with some of them, I can see the loneliness or the struggles and how, they have different challenges. We are in the same environment, the music environment, but it'll be different for a classical musician, what they experience from a DJ in, some
What do you think is the main difference? Because I've got a lot of thoughts about this myself, but what do you think is the main difference? What separates DJs from other musicians?
Well, first of all, DJs can be DJs without really learning any kind of classical music. So you can start, and usually they start when they are older. So classical musicians, they can start their training and their studying when they are 5, 6, 7 years old. And what that has, the effect that it has in the brain is that you are already learning a lot and they are labeling you and you are kind of, practicing what you are going to be when you grow up, when you are not even developed. as a person. So in a sense, they are, of course, very thorough and very structured and very obsessive and perfectionist. So some DJs may be perfectionists, some may not. And then for me, one of the hardest things, especially when they are touring in the beginning, when of course they cannot afford to bring someone with them, is the loneliness. So the loneliness, if you are playing in an orchestra or in a band, you may be having conflicts with other people, but still that's kind of good for the brain, good for developing, and you have to learn many things, and it's very, very challenging, and you can struggle with it as well. But if you are just by yourself, you cannot share what you enjoy, but also you cannot share your pain. And also what I have seen, but this, of course, this is just my personal opinion. I haven't done any research on the field. They don't have anyone to measure their success with when they are touring. So it's like either I feel I am God because I did a great show and I was closing this huge festival, and then you go alone to the hotel room and just stay there with the whole feelings, and the coming down from that is kind of hard and it's difficult. So yeah.
But when you say measure against, do you mean because if you were in a band, there might be 3 other people and one person might have played really well and one person might have messed up? Do you mean like that?
Yes, yeah. And it's like we are in this together. So imagine if you are kind of after a show, if you are with a team, even with your tour manager or with someone that is traveling with you or with your band, ideally, you can be just joking around or even talking really, oh, that was really terrible, and kind of venting about it. So you feel more connected, not so isolated, and you are not kind of boiling in your own emotions, but sharing them and kind of changing the way you feel in a way. So yeah, it's kind of together we are stronger in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting because there's like 2 things that spring to mind here, which are like the polar opposites, because it's like what you're saying about the loneliness and the not being able to compare. And on one hand, like I was listening recently to, I don't know if you know Scroobius Pip, but he's an English spoken word poet / musician. And he was talking with Kay Tempest, who's another spoken word who I saw recently. And they were talking about after the show, the emotions are so intense and high that you need a lot of time to process it. But then what usually happens, if you're famous anyway, is then you get invited to a party, people want to congratulate you, they want to come up and take photos with you, and then you've got these like intense emotions because you've spent an hour and a half or 2 hours giving everything you could possibly give, and then you have no time to unwind, and then you might start drinking or taking drugs or go out to a party. And they say that like it starts driving people a bit mental because you need that break. And I even find that after these podcasts, my head is absolutely just spinning, like all the things that have gone wrong and all the things that I wish I'd have said and all the things like that. And then what my kind of like unwind thing is, I go for a long walk and I listen to peaceful music and just kind of bring myself back down. But I think that if I was to jump straight into something else, it would be mental. And that's only just one-on-one talking. It's like, imagine if you had 10,000 people screaming your name, and like, it's amazing. And then the opposite of that is that I watched, I really like orchestral music. And so I watched Andre Rieu, like one of his concerts the other day in Sao Paulo. And there must have been like 10,000 people there, but they have an orchestra of like, I don't know, 50 people, and they travel all around the world together. And I was thinking, like, number one, how do you organize getting 50 people, like booking a hotel for 50 people, making 50 people get along, practicing or like rehearsing with 50 people or more, and then getting like guest singers? And I was just like, they're 2 totally different things, and they obviously have their own struggles, like you've mentioned. One is loneliness, and one is the fact that the opposite of loneliness, like being overwhelmed by other people. But I find it so interesting. Who do you think it's more interesting to work with?
Oh, I like them all. Well, I have to say first, if you feel any kind of rumination after this podcast, we can even talk.
Yeah.
We can share it. And yeah, I'm with you. When you are, I mean, depending on what you are going through, because sometimes we have the tendency to think, okay, you just see a show from the public and you are like, wow, that's amazing. My thing always has been, how is that person feeling right now? That was kind of what triggered all my studies and everything else. Interesting for me is even the tour managers as well. What are they feeling when they are working with these people? Who is the pressure? So for me, it's not just what you see, like the final product, but the humans that are making that happen. So something that I really like from working with not only musicians, but with people from the music industry, is that I get to see every side. Every side. So I'm working with a singer, and then I'm working with a producer. And they are telling me about their experience when they go together in the studio. They don't know each other, they live in different countries, but just seeing how they are feeling when there is a communication or misunderstanding, or what happens when the singer is not saying anything, any opinions, and then when the producer is kind of, sharing all the name dropping thing. I have been working with so and so, just to make things easy or to feel safe or whatever. But that's kind of triggering the other person on the other side. So it's really cool to see every piece of the puzzle. And for me, also something that I really like from working with managers is to see the dynamics between the artist and the manager, like in the classical orchestras. So it's not just what you are feeling, what that person is feeling. So it's more often people start by talking about other people's lives and struggles and everything else. So with a manager, maybe I will have like 5 or 6 first sessions, well into the 6th session. And they are just telling me about each artist's life and struggles.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, but you are telling me that, and you seem really tense. How are you feeling? And they cannot name one emotion within themselves.
That's really interesting. So they basically absorb the emotions of the people that they are managing.
Yes, it's like if they are okay, I am okay. But of course, that has a name, and it's codependency. Because when you are trying to change your own emotions by controlling or helping or sorting out other people's lives, then that's it's really a type of slavery, and it's never enough, and it doesn't help the other people because it doesn't let them take responsibility for the actions and their lives. So it's good to always just go back to, what are you feeling? What is your experience? What is your take on all this? Okay, your artist or your orchestra partner, whatever, they are doing or feeling or having a tantrum in the middle of a show, but how is that making you feel? Because that's the main thing, always.
Yeah, it's such a simple point that's just overlooked. How does that make you feel? But that's really, really, you've put that so well with the role of managing, because I suppose that ideally we need to separate our emotions from other people's emotions. And obviously, if you're a manager, you want those people to be doing well and you want those people to be okay. But ultimately, their life is not your responsibility. Their career at that point partly is your responsibility, but their life is not. But I suppose that the boundary between those two things gets merged a lot. And I suppose that if you're a particularly empathic person, then the chances of you entering into codependency with that person, unless you are really solid and stable in your own identity, the chances of you like being able to healthily manage that are probably quite low. But I know a manager of like a high level manager of music artists, and I won't name them because it'll make it way too obvious, but and I think that's definitely what he experiences, because he's always in turmoil and he's always like his life, he hasn't sorted his life out yet, and he tries to kind of live his life through other people's life, and it's not a healthy balance. And it's often the people that you work with, unfortunately, like really creative, amazing people, as you know, are often very troubled, because I think that creativity often goes hand in hand with like instability, basically. Do you think that's true?
I think that's a myth.
You think it's a myth?
That is really dangerous for artists. So, but there's part of truth in that, of course, because sometimes if you have a messy life, let's say, and the only thing that you feel connected with or helps you feel like you have a sense is music. Maybe that's something that you are good at and you are focusing in that, but you are not stable yourself in everything else. Or you don't do self-care, or you don't really listen to your body boundaries, and then you go into music and everything is like, oh, this is the perfect place for that. So just like changing your sleeping rhythms and everything else. So I think people who are troubled, they are called to this kind of world because, of course, everything is mixed together. There is a lot of passion. There is also an option for feeling intense feelings all the time. And then I don't think you have to be a superstar and trouble. And that doesn't go well together. It's not just some people, of course, when you get to the top, if you haven't had that path from the beginning, or at some point of taking care of yourself or caring for something else apart from your job, for me that's one of the keys. Then when you get there, of course, everything is going to be messy, because it's just putting together all the coping mechanisms that are not very healthy. And the trouble is not just I am suffering because I was born this way, but is I am struggling with something, and then I am put into an environment that it has a lot of pressure and no boundaries.
I totally get what you're saying. And I've often thought about it before, whether is it troubles that makes people creative, or is it creativity that can then often lead people towards troubles, which can often come in the form of drugs and alcohol in an early age. But as far as my thoughts were that creativity is linked to the personality trait openness, and openness is linked to neuroticism. And so I thought that then it's kind of like a trinity of openness, creativity, and neuroticism that are strongly linked, which is why I thought that, because as if the more open you are, the more open you are to positive emotion, and the more open you are to negative emotion, the more open you are to new experiences, which I think can obviously lead to creativity, but then would also lead to the chance of, if you're really open, you're more likely to experiment with drugs, for example, whereas a less open person is much less likely to do that, and a less open person is much more likely to be stable, because they're much more likely to focus on order and structure and balance. And that's why I kind of put that link between the three of them. But then it's also, I think that in terms of the people that I meet, often the most brilliant ones are the ones that have had the hardest lives, or like really horrible stuff happened to them. And I think that probably is because one of the only ways for those people to get out of it is to do something creative, because it actually does, like, it's so therapeutic for certain people. And you see that a lot in the spoken word scene, that some of the best people have had the worst things happen to them, and they're like, the intensity, like you mentioned, the intensity and the passion comes out in it. But it's an amazing thing to see. And I was actually talking about it recently with on another podcast with one of I can't remember who it was, but we were saying about how what you mentioned about moving up the ladder slowly, basically, like you mentioned, like a classical musician who starts off and they put in loads of training for years and years and years, then they get better and better and better and better. Eventually they're playing at a high level in an orchestra or something. Whereas you can get a DJ now who posts a mix on YouTube and within like 6 months is like got 1 million views or something. And we were talking about how it's absolutely mental how quickly people can become famous now. Like in the past, before the internet, it would have been way slower, you know, way slower to have your name on paper, you know, so everyone to see you. And I went to see recently Mark Rebile. Do you know him? And he basically became famous over COVID, just making mixes in his bedroom. And now he's playing on stage, like the massive stage in Barcelona. And that's come in the past like 2 years or less. And that fame so quickly must mess you up. But like it'd be, unless you were such a solid, strong, like sense of identity and self, which most people don't if they're in their 20s or even 30s, like it must drive you absolutely mental. What do you think about that?
Definitely. What a great point. I just want to comment on everything you say. On one side, I just want to recall the creativity and the struggles. You have a point with the kind of the openness to the emotions and kind of the stability, but we have to be careful with labeling those kind of elements as good or bad.
Yeah.
Because on one side, you can be open to the new experiences, but if you are scared of the emotions, your tendency is going to be to mask them or stop them or avoid them. And that's where the issues may start. So it's true that, I mean, from the kind of the 27 Club and all that, people who really struggle and die by suicide, usually they are not just stars. It's just they have some traumatic experiences or another symptoms from childhood. Usually this is what the correlation and the papers show. And then at the same time, you can be super famous from one day to the next in the DJ world, of course. And how do you handle that if you don't have that identity? And it's not just the identity, but for me, that's the key as well, the main thing. But also, what if you have stage fright?
Yeah.
And suddenly you are just like making tunes in your room and you feel safe, you are in your pajamas, and then you go and play in front of everyone. When I have to go and teach in, I don't know, wherever, Berklee, or when I'm working with students, and I tell them, you have to be really aware of what is going on within yourself. Because sometimes you think, I just want to be there, playing at that show, closing that festival. But that is not always enjoyable.
Yeah.
So you may be enjoying, but you may be not, because there are so many things that can go wrong. So being put in that position is not just, wow, it's amazing all the time, but it comes with a lot of pressure. And one of the elements that I see the most, and it's not very shared, I don't think, is when people reach that point on being famous or being huge or closing festivals or being touring the world, working with whoever they dream about when they were little, and then they are not enjoying, they feel guilty.
Yeah.
They feel so guilty. And they just hate to feel that way. They start thinking about it. Why am I not enjoying this? I gave up so much in my life to be here. I thought this was the answer to everything in life. I made it. And this is not what I thought. And I'm not enjoying. And I feel pressure. And I hate waking up early for taking flights or being at airports all the time. I feel tired. Or I don't have any friends because I'm just on the road, or no one really cares about me, really. It's just, where are you playing next? Who are you playing with? And they are bored of it.
Yeah. That's such an interesting point. And it's like it stems even further down the chain. So for example, like on a similar level would be someone who's just become very wealthy doing anything, become very wealthy, and they're not happy, and they're like, well, I've got millions of pounds, you know, I should be so happy because loads of people don't have any money or anything, and they feel so guilty. And then it goes even further down the chain. Like, I've felt massively guilty at myself before when I'm there complaining about my life, and then you walk out on the street in Raval and you see someone with like one leg who's on the floor begging and they've got no money and they're like on the verge of death. And I'm like,
Mm.
I'm here feeling sorry for myself about some stupid thing and this person's nearly dying.
Mm.
And then it makes you feel guilty for that. And it's crazy, but it's
Mm.
so, must be even more crazy when someone's famous because like
Mm.
you say, no one cares about them. They just want to see the like person, the show, the
Mm.
thing. And it's mental. Like I always thought about what it would be like, if you're world famous, Michael Jackson, Freddie Mercury, something like that, you can't do anything. You can't go anywhere without people screaming your name. And I always thought I never experienced this myself, but when people get obsessed with, like a famous person, they have posters on their wall and they love that person. And then you see them, they'll see that person, they start crying because they've seen that person. And it's like, imagine being on the reverse side of that and having people crying when they see you and like,
Mm.
breaking down in tears and going mental just because they've seen you. And it's like, how do you deal with that as a person? Like, it's absolutely crazy.
I think you just feel disconnected.
Yeah.
You just feel disconnected from people. And that's where the isolation comes in because you are feeling guilty. You cannot complain to your friends because you are like, the richest amongst them. And they always envy your life. There is no one that you can really talk to in this way because you're going to feel judged.
Yeah.
Even you won't even share it because you're worried that you are going to be judged. And then people see you and they are putting you in a pedestal and you start doing things that seem cool from the outside. But I promise, if you have dinner with different promoters by yourself every weekend in 3 different countries for a year, you don't want to go to a restaurant anymore.
Yeah.
You don't want to see people who really like your music anymore. It's like, yeah, that's cool. This is what I do for a living. But then you cannot be vulnerable with people. And then at the bottom of that, from all that happiness, if you're not really wise and you're not connected with your own emotions, you start looking happiness in different areas that may be not very healthy. So if you are like that kind of famous, that you cannot go anywhere and you are known in every country, imagine how that must feel like if you have a family.
Yeah.
And you have children and you cannot go to a restaurant. And I mean, I think they have the right to be angry
Yeah.
and to complain and to feel everything because as humans, we have the right to feel whatever we feel. Yeah. And of course, we have respect and we are living in society. So you are not going to be punching people on the street because you feel something. But yeah, I feel what helps is having just compassion. And not judging, not for the good, no, oh, this must be amazing, this is the life I want to get, but more about, well, that's a human being that is supporting a lot of stress, that is working super hard. And we don't know if they have free time, if they can go to their friends' weddings because they are always playing on the weekends, and how long they are far away from the family. So how do they feel when they are in a plane? So I think everything that takes us away from being humans and put us in the kind of being a product is dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's not very fun. It doesn't matter if you are the most expensive product in the world, you still, have the lack of human connection. And having a purpose in life is not having a goal, but it's a feeling that your life has a sense. And that you are connected and you are doing something good and you feel seen within yourself, not seen in what you do for a living. What you do for a living can be super cool or not, but it's important to have someone or some people around you that really care about who are you really and what are you feeling.
Yeah. And I always thought about that as well, that like once you get, the more wealthy you get, the more important you get, the more fake people you have around you who want things from you. And then how do you know who's your real friends? How do you know who's gonna, like, I would be suspicious of everyone I met, because if you're someone who can provide, you know, contacts or money, and it's I know it's a much like that in the music industry. Everybody's just trying to be everyone's best friend so that they can get new contacts. And but if that's all your interactions, where are your true friends? You know, the people that have been there maybe from the beginning, but those people you probably don't ever see because you're traveling around all the time.
Definitely.
And you know, that's what it's lonely at the top, I suppose. And I always feel like I try my hardest, because obviously we get these natural judgments of everyone we see, we just judge. And I try to like separate that and always think about that person and play devil's advocate and be okay, you know, their life almost definitely isn't as great as it looks. Like, what is that person really feeling? And it's even the same with the wealthier people get, it seems to be the more people hate them, you know. And like when you get up to the level of billionaires, they go around, and a lot of them, yeah, they make a lot of money, but they also, like the ones I can think of, they spend a lot of time trying to do good things, you know, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where they try to, you know, provide water in Africa. They try to cure malaria. They try to do these things. And yeah, I'm sure they make loads of mistakes on the way, but they try to do it. And they're just 50% of the world hates them, basically because they're rich. And then you get all these billionaires that go to these meetings together, and then there's all conspiracies about the meetings. And, you know, sometimes maybe they're true, maybe they're not. And then they go to these islands together, and obviously Epstein's island's a bit different, but they go to these places because they're the only places they can go and be themselves around other billionaires and drive their cars and stuff, because if they drive their cars around the streets, everyone just thinks they're an asshole. And it's like, so they have to go to these places, and they basically can only really hang around with other billionaires because everyone else is just going to think they're an asshole just for being rich. And some of them, I'm sure, are total assholes, but then not all of them are. The same with everything. And some people, you know, if you've started and you've just built up companies and made loads and loads of money, then fine. You know, some people are born into loads of money, and maybe they don't like deserve that money, if that's really a thing. But it's like, it's so hard just to be hated because you've actually been successful, really. And it's like sort of the reverse of the music industry, where they're just absolutely loved. But it's also, whenever you see like the Amy Winehouse documentary, or well, film, I suppose, is it documentary, and then you see like the film about Freddie Mercury and the film about Elton John, and Elvis, and they give everything to other people. Their whole life is pleasing other people, and they have absolutely zero time for themselves, because their managers or whoever's like controlling them is basically just stripping as much of them as possible and taking as much of their money as possible. And it's like, these poor people just live their lives, like you said, as a slave for us.
They are slaves to each other, because the manager with the artist and all the way around. Yes. I mean, I have no awareness of any kind of billionaires island, I have to say. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm so disconnected.
There's a few.
They should go to my hometown in Extremadura. No one will ever talk to them. They don't speak English. It's in the middle of nowhere. We don't even have a train. So they can be free there.
Nice.
It's a little bit hot in the summer, I have to say. But yeah. Well,
I saw a thing actually, and if I ever have some extra money when I'm older, when I say extra money, I mean a lot of extra money. I saw some things where in Spain and Italy and probably lots of other places, you can buy like old villages, really like a whole village, but the catch is that you have to renovate the thing within like a certain amount of time. So they'll sell you a whole village for like 100,000 euros or something, and then you have to spend the next few years renovating it. And I was like, that'd be so cool, in the middle of nowhere or on a mountain somewhere in Spain, just like having this really old-fashioned village. And they think that what's going to happen with a lot of them is that tech entrepreneurs are going to come in and, you know, someone will develop it, and then these like old Spanish villages will turn into like tech hubs, which is so weird. Places that have like donkeys walking around and stuff.
Google Pueblo.
Yeah, Google Pueblo. Which I think would be so cool. But Yeah, there are billionaire islands. Epstein's Island was where they did loads of like pedophile things. But then there are other like some of the billionaires, Richard Branson, who owns Virgin. I think he's got some islands. And then yeah, there's some other billionaires who've got islands, but they go to these like festivals or mansions together, and they probably do weird stuff. But like, so what? But that's another thing that.
And then what? Because when you are getting to some point, like stars, like if you are not feeling anything, and I always share this example. Of course, I cannot give many details, but I have had many people coming to my practice and just saying, okay, I met all my goals, all the ones that I was setting for like and for the future, and the higher I get, the less I feel. I don't feel anything. The kind of the feeling of being proud or super happy, it lasts very, very short time. And it's not because yeah, I'm over everything. It's not kind of it's not showing off. It's a kind of disconnection from your from the limbic area in the brain, because we are so focused in the prefrontal cortex, which is the one that has to do with the goals and what is outside yourself and the plans, that we start
That's like the
disconnecting.
that's like the rational part, isn't it? Like the logic and rational and like
and the future and the planning and the kind of structure, the self-talk, everything is kind of around there. Of course, everything's everywhere in the brain, but then the limbic area is what we feel is more connected with the body. It's kind of, you feel it in your gut, let's say. And creativity is there. So yesterday when we had the Q&A, we were talking a little bit about creativity. And when you go into the studio and you try to make something, if you are thinking, what is this going to be for, in the middle of the creative process, you are going to maybe not enjoy it very much, and even can be the beginning of a creativity block.
So you're saying that wait, I just need to check. You're saying that if you actually think if you go to do something creative and you try and logically think of the outcome,
yes,
that's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing. It's super bad thing.
I do that with every single thing I ever do.
Because some people, when maybe that happens to you, when I am not being productive today.
Yes, that's the story of my life.
Productive is prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
So being productive is kind of when you are mastering the track already, or sending it to your label, or doing something that has to do with the planning and the structure and the organization. But if you scan the brain when you are creating, the part that gets active is the same one that we have when we are meditating or dreaming. So it's kind of inwards. And in order to make that space and that connection, every time you name a feeling or you connect with that feeling, that's good, because you are training the brain to connect with that part. Yeah. And also when you allow yourself to just play, to just have fun, to kind of, this is my space, I don't want to show this to anyone, I will see if anything good comes from this, but then that will be the next step. The first step, this is for myself. I'm not going to show it to anyone. I like it, I'm having fun or not, I'm experimenting, I am kind of, not following the normal steps even.
Yeah.
Using some instruments or some tracks or some sounds that you will never use. Maybe you're not going to use it in the end, but that will spark your brain. Yeah.
Okay, so that is because I was starting to get the inclination that I feel like I've been using like a cheat method to make myself do things, and it's exactly what you've mentioned. I started to get the inclination that probably this isn't the right way to do it, because whenever you listen to meditation, mindfulness, or anything like that, it's like, just experience, just be, enjoy the present moment. Don't be thinking about the future or what this is going to give you. But to motivate myself, like to even to go out and socialize, like I have to say, okay, I'm going to go socialize and I'm going to try and meet some people and make some connections. And otherwise it's like, should I go socialize? I'm like, no. And it's like, or should I go to an event? And I'm like, no. But it's like, so then if I think to myself, okay, I'll go out and I won't necessarily think maybe I'll meet some people for my podcast or something, but there'll always be these big goals that I've got, of which there are so many. But I know that everything that I try to do, I try to make sure that everything I do is thought out. So everything I do has a purpose. And I think that what you're saying is that's not good, because you should just do things just for the sake. But then I suppose I do also try and just go with the flow and just like, if something feels right, do it straight away without really thinking. So I suppose there is some balance, but I don't know. What I notice is that as I stopped drinking caffeine for like 2.5 years, and now I start and then, no, until recently, and now I've been like in and out experimenting with it and seeing the effects that it has. And caffeine, I imagine, is stimulating your prefrontal cortex a lot, because that's what caffeine does. Makes you focus, makes you productive, until you have too much, and then it just makes you tired and moody
anxious.
and anxious. But another thing I was thinking of when you said about the limbic system being feelings, and it brought me to thinking about meditation. And one form of meditation is just focusing on your breathing or observing your thoughts and not letting them kind of materialize, just knowing they're there, but just separating them. But then when you said that, it made me think, okay, but focusing on your thoughts, that would still be training your prefrontal cortex, wouldn't it? And the type of meditation I prefer is body scan meditation, yoga nidra, and that for me is much easier, but I find it much more beneficial. But now you're saying that from what you're saying, it sounds like that'll be training the limbic system, because you're focusing on your feelings and you're focusing on your body. Is that correct?
There is an amazing podcast that talks about the benefits of each kind of meditation. I won't say, I will tell you later, but I feel...
Well, you can plug it if you want, I think.
The Huberman Lab.
Yeah, I listen to Huberman, yeah.
I
love him, he's so good.
Groupie.
Yeah.
I'm just his groupie. It's so cool. So he did recently a couple about meditation. So any kind of meditation is going to be good for connecting with your emotions as well. So it doesn't really matter what type you use. Anything that you do that is going to help you seeing where are you focused on. Yeah. So the kind of increasing the awareness. Any kind of meditation is going to do that. So when I am guiding meditations, often I don't ask people to focus in their breath, because many people have anxiety. So for some people that may be super activating and triggering to focus in, how am I breathing?
Yeah,
then I get scared.
I hated that when I first did it.
Yeah, and then you get more anxious, and then it's like, well, meditation doesn't work for me, and you give up. So training the attention is not giving more power to your prefrontal cortex. It's just allowing the prefrontal cortex, in a way, this is very simplistic, but for the sake of explanation, to just go to, where am I now? If I'm thinking or planning, that's not bad, but it's just to be aware that I'm thinking, I'm planning, I'm in the future, and that's okay. But maybe it's not the right time for going to the studio. It's the right time for doing my emails. Yeah? Or I'm talking to myself really badly today. Just to be aware, to catch yourself talking to yourself in a really bad way. Okay, then maybe you can be kinder. And that's going to be an emotion and something deeper. And then, I feel really agitated. What emotion am I feeling? That's going to help you, I think, with meditation, anything that you do. Or I have tension in some part of my body. Body scan is amazing. It's, for me, one of the best tools ever. So, yeah, I really encourage everyone to try it, to try any kind of meditation, wherever feels nicer, easier, and kind of you feel the call to do it.
Yeah. That was the thing that I pretty much everyone I speak to says, oh, I tried meditation, couldn't do it, hate it. And I'm like, yeah, I totally understand. I tried it for like a year and a half, hated every second of it. And then from Huberman, I got onto, no, I think I did some body scan before that and I enjoyed it. I can't remember where I found that. But then I got onto, he spoke about yoga nidra and I started doing it in the mornings and the afternoons. And because that is lying down and the idea is just to rest. And I'm like, okay, that suits me well. And like I started getting some, again, I don't like to use the word results because
Yeah.
it's meditation. You're not supposed to
Then
get
you
results, but like they are results for me because it's like when you feel some sort of altered state of consciousness and you feel relaxed, then I was like, oh my God, thank you. After like 1.5 years of like feeling and felt like I got one benefit from it. And obviously I'm sure it was like doing some sort of benefits in the background, but then it's like you say, trying to focus on your breath and that's making you anxious. Is that helping you? Probably not. So that's probably what I was doing, just making myself more anxious. Um, but I don't know, meditation's one of those things that it's like, it's a bit like exercise, I suppose, but I find it easy to make myself do exercise because that's much more instant rewards. Again, talking about rewards. But like meditation's one of those things where it's like, lie down there for 10 minutes and you try and that sounds so easy and you do it and you're like, oh, this is so hard.
And
This is so hard.
that's precisely the benefit of it, I feel.
Yeah.
Kind of even in these times we live in, being able to just sit and be is the most revolutionary thing you can do. And it really connects you with, I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
So if you are touring, or if you are having a bad day at the studio, or if you had a fight with your manager or with your partner or whatever, being able to just be with yourself and then decide how you want to respond. So meditation gives you more space for responding instead of reacting to the environment. Having that space for yourself, of course, there's kind of, I am bored, I don't know what I'm doing this for, I should be doing emails and all that. But when you really find when it's good for you and what do you enjoy about that, it's kind of the best part of the day. The best part of the day. And if you have some pain in some part of your body and you scan it when you are doing meditation, the way it changes is magical. And well, there has been recent studies on how meditation has a kind of a similar effect to antidepressants.
Yeah. 100%, I can imagine.
But it doesn't have any secondary effect. So why not try it? Why not try it? So yeah, I hope people really try meditation. It's good.
It is so good. I think that the struggle with meditation is that it's like just if your whole life is chaos and maybe you're drinking too much caffeine and everything else is really crazy and you try meditation, it's gonna be not really do very much. And I think that's what puts people off because it's like when you start noticing the results when you change lots of things in your life, and it's good obviously to start whatever you can, but you know you need to be kind of getting your sleep in order, your diet in order, your caffeine consumption in order. Like even now, I was doing 20 minutes, about 20 minutes of yoga nidra at 4 o'clock each day, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
Because I'd read or heard in a few places that 4 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe you'll be able to tell me this because I can't remember it, but it's a time in the day when the yogic tradition says that we're closer to nature. And I think that because I was looking at the science behind that, and I think it might be that your limbic system calms down or your prefrontal cortex calms down. Something calms down at those times, around those times for people, which allows us to relax basically, and get closer to nature with meditation. And it's something that I really noticed that when I meditate at 4 in the afternoon, I never do it at 4 in the morning, but 4 in the afternoon, I noticed that the effects are way stronger. And for me, I get naturally tired at 4 o'clock. But now that I've been drinking caffeine for the past 6 weeks, I don't get tired. And then I forget to do it because I'm busy doing stuff. And then when I do try and do it, my mind is too active and it's really difficult to get any sort of relaxation involved. But like, it just kind of alerted me to the effect that caffeine has on you. And it's very clear, but it alerted me to I'm much more unable to relax. And then when I was younger, up until I kind of stopped taking drugs and drinking and everything, I hated being still or being quiet or sat there. I hated going to bed so much. I used to put it off as long as possible because I would lie there and I'd just be, my brain would just be firing so fast I couldn't follow anything that's going on. And I would just be lying there awake, the thoughts just flying around my head. And I absolutely hated it. So I think that then if I'd have tried to do meditation, I probably would have been scarred for life because it'd be like lie there and sit and be still. And I'd just be like, impossible. It's not possible. Then when you start sleeping and being healthier, then you can start noticing really nice effects. And I remember when I first started meditating at 4 and then waking up afterwards and feeling amazing. And then Huberman told that it replenishes your dopamine. And then because before I knew that, I was noticing that I would meditate at 4, well, yoga nidra at 4 for like 20 minutes. And then you take about 10, 15 minutes to readjust after that when you wake up. And then after that, I'd go back to my computer and be able to like do a load of extra stuff. It'd be like a second wave in the day. Then I found out it replenishes your dopamine. I'm like, this is amazing. And I'm like, I don't need a cup of coffee in the afternoon. I was like, I need to go and do some more meditation.
That's why we love Huberman.
That's why we love Huberman. Thank you, Mr. Andrew Huberman.
Thank
you are the best.
And also, well, it makes a lot of sense because it's siesta time.
Yeah.
It's siesta time in South Spain. Well, it's kind of 45 degrees outside. So it's kind of, you better get into the darkness because otherwise you're not going to survive. But meditation is not for relaxing.
Yeah.
The goal is not to feel relaxed.
Yeah.
It's to be present. And sometimes you feel relaxed by being present and sometimes you feel awake. And that's okay. And even if you feel sleepy, it's part of meditation. So no seeking a state, that's also good. So even when all the spinning thoughts, I always say this is like a hamster in a wheel. And you can be carried away with the thoughts and just punish yourself for having a lot of thoughts. But then, and I was saying this in AD, in a festival in Amsterdam to some person from the industry. If you have many thoughts, it's kind of having balloons in your head, helium balloons, all of them. And sometimes we worry and we just worry about the size and about if we want to push them or control them. And we are so busy and it's kind of overwhelming sometimes. But it's good to just go and see, okay, imagine if all those balloons were tied down to a little stone in the middle of your chest. What is the emotion that you are feeling? Because that's just one element, one emotion. When we are scared about something, for example, if we feel super anxious and you ask, what are you scared about? And they are, I'm scared about this and that and that. We can be scared about everything. But then what is the emotion? I feel fear. And it's just one. Okay. How is the fear in your chest? What size has? What do you need? Do you need me to be here, present with you, next to you? I'm going to stay here. You can talk to me. I'm going to be here. How does it change in your body, the fear, when you talk about it? When you expose yourself to the emotion? And how does it change the size, the color, the sensation in your body? And we are not in the thoughts anymore. The prefrontal cortex is connected with the emotion. It's kind of linking into the limbic area and saying, okay, there is fear there, and that's okay, without judging and exploring. being curious about it. And that's what you practice with meditation as well. Those
Mm.
skills and tools. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so the best things in life, I think, are often the simplest, you know. And it's like, if you want to be healthy, you can basically sleep well, exercise a bit, and meditate, and that is the foundation for being pretty healthy. Obviously, you need to sort out other things in your life, but really, you need to do those three things.
And relationships.
And relationships.
And
Wait, I'm just going to tell
relationships.
these people out here to just let them know where.
Yeah.
Hey, just to let you know, we're podcasting here to. Yeah, if you keep it down as much as possible, that would be amazing. Thank you. Sorry for that little technical.
It's okay. We are being humans.
Yeah, we are being humans. Yeah, relationships. How important are relationships in life for people?
We die if we don't have them.
We die if we don't have them.
We are basically, well, there is this experiment that they did in the 60s, I think. It was with little monkeys. I cried when I saw the experiment. So they wanted to test what is love in monkeys. No, before they did the study, the theory was, okay, we connect with people because we need things from them. Yeah, in a way. So you love your mom because she fits you, and that's kind of the beginning of everything. And it's kind of in this interest, kind of survival, but kind of with something in between, the milk. So they put the little monkeys in some cages, and they had two options, the little monkeys. There was one where they will get milk, but the mom monkey was made of wire. So it was just wire and milk. And then there was the other one who had, it's like a soft fabric, the kind of furry. And the monkeys would spend most of the day just with the one that was kind of contact instead of the milk. And if they were scared, they wouldn't even go for the milk. They would stay with the mom that just gave them comfort. And there was a second part of the study that was even worse, but I won't share it because I may cry. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that just goes to show, doesn't it?
Yes, and I mean, I feel so touched when I meet people in a busy environment where everyone is doing super cool stuff. I'm super, super busy. And I remember last year or the year before, I was in a festival in Hamburg, and they introduced me to this amazing woman who is the CEO of a big company in the States. And, well, my friend was like, you have to meet each other. You are going to really like each other. And when I was walking towards the meeting, I was just thinking, oh my God, this woman, she's she's super important, super busy. And when I sat with her, I was like, so you have been here for a week? And she said, yes. You have been meeting people every half an hour for a week. How are you feeling? How are you? And then she did like, actually, I am tired.
Yeah.
And then we started talking, and she shared about her family, and I was telling her what I do for a living and what's my passion and how I like psychology. And then, well, we ended up working together. She called me. She wanted me to do the kind of the mental health awareness month in her company. And everything started just with the human part. And it's really cool to be working with a big company. But to be honest, for me, the main thing, apart from going to New York, because that was super fun, but is the people I met in that context with that. This is the way we connect more with people. And if you feel disconnected, you can be superstar, CEO, or whatever, but you feel disconnected from other people. That's not really fun or enjoyable. We are more tired. We even when we don't have like meaningful relationships, that can be really dangerous when we have an underlying problem, anxiety, depression, or whatever. So it's good to just check what are my meaningful relationships. And if we don't have many physical near us, it's important to just be open, to be nice to people. Because, well, actually, last year I did this kind of loneliness tips, not for loneliness, but but for loneliness. And it's just about, if you're on the street, just smile or be nice, help people. When we help people, we well, apart from everything that we feel in the brain, all the neurotransmitters changing and kind of bubbling, we start having more a sense of purpose. It's not so much about having opportunities, but it's more about, are you okay? Do you need anything? Can I get you a coffee? Are you feeling right? I noticed you seem tense today. That kind of thing, that being there, being open to the connection is already going to help everyone to just, well, be healthier, enjoy more life, and feel more balanced. Yeah. It's kind of having roots, being trees, and we have roots, and the roots are connected, and then, everything is going to stay, the kind of the foundation for it. So if the rain, if it's raining, it's going to stay longer. If the ground is going to be richer. So yeah, we're all connected.
Yeah, I love that. I love that analogy of the tree and the roots, and it makes me think, even more than tree and roots, makes me think of mycelium and the mycelium network, which connects basically everything under the ground.
Wow, that documentary.
It's so cool. And then last night I was just thinking, and I was wondering, because we were watching this thing about these triplets, sorry. That is a documentary on Netflix. I haven't finished it yet, but it's basically about these triplets that were separated at birth. In like the 60s and 70s, loads of twins and triplets were separated at birth.
Really?
In America.
Oh my God.
And then studied without them knowing. And then these triplets found out that they'd been separated, but they found out by accident. And then it started unraveling, and then all these other people started realizing that they'd all been separated at birth. And there's a few points there, but the thing that made me think last night was, I was wondering, because I've been thinking a lot about consciousness, and I'm like, is consciousness something that's within our DNA? Is it something that's within our genes? And I was thinking last night, and this is a bit like sci-fi, but I was wondering, can our DNA and genes communicate with other DNA and genes in a similar way to mycelium? And obviously, any scientist listening will be like, no, Connor, that's stupid. But maybe, because what these twins experienced, it does make you wonder, is there some sort of actual physical connection that we have with people that's non-visible, and if so, what is that? That's probably part of what consciousness is. Does that come straight from our genetics and our DNA? Because what they found out from the triplets and twin studies was that way more than they thought was of like characteristics of the people was inherited. They thought it would be like a bit was inherited and then most was environmental. But like it was even things like these people all like the same colors, they all had the same taste in women, they all like loved specific sport, and just everything like that. But there was loads of other strange things about, they would be finishing each other's sentences and everything, and they'd grown up until I think they met when they were going to college, so like 20 something. So they'd grown up all totally different, and then they were still having saying the same thing, and they were also saying that they were having the same thoughts at the same time, and one twin would go and say to someone something they'd been thinking about, and then the person would say, yeah, your brother already told me that. And like things like that. And I'm like, is this all coded in our DNA and genetics? Is it coded from birth, everything that's going to kind of unravel? Or is there some sort of communication that information arrives in one person and it's kind of broadcast between people? And, it's like with family especially, or a partner, you are sad and affected when they are. And I'm far away from my family, but I still feel it. I still feel when there's something wrong. And, you know, that's part of what I suppose intuition is. But when you don't even really speak to that person, how are you still feeling? Or is that just some sort of anxiety or like, I suppose what I'm getting at here is there something which can define intuition, something we don't yet understand? Sorry, the loud motorbike out there. Is that intuition maybe some sort of communication between our cells, our DNA, genetics? Who knows?
What does it make you feel?
What does that make me feel?
Yeah. That kind of, that wondering.
That wondering is...
What does it make you feel?
It makes me feel... excited's not the right word. I would say awestruck is what it makes me feel.
Good.
That's what it makes me feel. It makes me feel thankful to be alive. It makes me think that it makes me feel like the world is so amazing, and that and the body and the mind, and it just makes me feel that we are just a tiny, tiny drop in an ocean. Not even a drop in an ocean. We are a grain of sand in a galaxy compared to the universe that's around. And I think that everything that we understand about the universe now and the limits of what's possible, I don't think that any of that is real. I think that I strongly believe in multiverses. I believe it's possible to time travel. I believe it's possible to bend space and time, and anything that can be thought of and beyond is possible. And so it makes me just feel, it humbles me, and it makes me feel like I know nothing, which is a good place to be, because it drives my insatiable curiosity to find out stuff, and it makes every day a pleasure because I absolutely love learning new things. But I think I'm fortunate in the sense that I am happy believing several things about the same concept. So I'm happy believing that it is true and it's not true. And I don't really, I suppose what I'm saying is I don't weigh anything as true or false, because it's not. Nothing is really true and false and black and white. Everything can be stretched and pushed and bent and twisted, and this can be true in context, in this certain context, but maybe we haven't figured out the context in which it's not true. And, you know, science does the work of building frameworks for us to understand things, and physics and mathematics, and physics is as true as it can be until it's proved wrong. And then there's obviously universal concepts which are thought to be universal and 100% true and unbreakable, and maybe some of them are. You know, maybe there are certain things which we have figured out that are 100% never, in no circumstance, could possibly ever be not true. I don't know enough about anything about physics really, but most things, I think we're only at the basis, very, very basic level of understanding. And even the brain, we still understand like relatively fairly little. And something like consciousness, which every single person, everything alive has, for all we know, inanimate objects also have consciousness, yet we don't even know what that is. And that's like the fundamental underpinning of life, and we still don't understand that. And so I think it's amazing to have all the possibility to discover new things. And I think that one of the most important things that's facing us at the moment, number one, is for people to open their mind to the new possibilities, because I think that within our lifetime, things are going to change so much that people will probably find it very difficult to keep up the rate that things will change, and new information will come out about the past, about the future, about potentially about consciousness, you know, where we go when we die, like things like that. And I think that it's going to be very difficult for people to take in a lot of the information. But I also think that it's so our biggest challenge now is to focus on consciousness, because we are developing artificial intelligence, robots, supercomputers, quantum computing, flying to Mars, all of these things, which are all brilliant. But as AI rises and becomes more powerful, that will take away a lot of human tasks more and more and more and more, even things like writing. And probably there'll be an AI for podcasting where you just type in some information and it'll podcast for you. But we need to focus on what separates us from computers and machines, which is consciousness and our ability for emotions and our ability to understand things in a non-logical way, because computers understand things via logic, algorithms, yes, no,
Prefrontal
correct, not,
cortex.
prefrontal cortex, exactly. So we have to focus on what makes us different. And I think that that's why we have this movement back to yoga, meditation, Eastern practices, mindfulness, all of these things which are like we have lost in Western society. Well, most of the world have lost these practices, and now it's kind of, let's go back to these things, let's go back to nature, let's regenerate, let's think about what we're doing, let's think about what we're chopping down, let's think about where we're putting our waste, try and develop a new way to live harmoniously with nature, let robots do all the boring stuff basically, and the processing, but we need to focus on creativity and
being
and being
and being
and being and just being happy is the wrong word to use, but just being.
That's the goal. And what you were describing, thank you for sharing.
Sorry, that's a very, very long answer to your simple question.
You saw my interest in here. When we talk about different levels, we go deeper. And for me, your sharing was deep. And it was not just about what you know and what you think or what you wonder, but the wonder itself. When we see the borders and we feel connected, feeling small and feeling that we have part of nature and we are nature as well, and there's some things that the mind cannot understand or control, and we let it go and we accept it and we connect with that sense of wondering and just the intention, the aspirations of being in a better place for nature, for your life, for the world. For me, that's spirituality, really.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. One thing I forgot to mention was that, I love to dream and I love to ponder and I love to dream and to be ambitious and to think of what the future could be like and come up with business ideas and things like that. But one thing I learned was that, and I think that, again, this is probably something that people should know, is when you do dream about the future, your body reacts in a way as if it is true. So it's the same with anxiety. If you think something bad happens, your body will react as if it's already happening and cause you anxiety. But if you think of something that's amazing that's going to happen, so in 10 years' time, I will have a really successful podcast and, my life will be amazing. Your body reacts in that way and you might feel really nice, but then you lack the dopamine that's needed to pursue that goal because your body has already acted as if it's true. And that's something that I used to do a lot. Dream, feel amazing because I'm dreaming all these things, and to me they're real. When I'm dreaming them, they're real, and they're real. And then I wasn't starting or doing anything because your body thinks you've already completed the goal. And so now I'm like, I have to kind of limit the amount that I dream of the future because otherwise I can't do anything.
I will include there just the kind of the 3 dimensions on when it's actually happening. just going back to the example that we were saying, you can dream about that festival and being playing there, and that's the dream, and you are already kind of, I don't have to practice. I already have that kind of intense emotion that I will be seeking. But at the same time, you are missing the backstage and what you are feeling in that moment. So real life is always better, and the present is always better than the dreams that we may have. So of course it's good to dream, and it's something that the mind has, and it's amazing. Everything that we do, the brain has, is amazing. It's just magical almost. But to name it and to say this is a dream, and then okay, I can dream for a little while, and then coming back to reality.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to be alive now? And how does it feel like to be planning to do a podcast? And how does it feel like? And then it will come or not. Something different may come, and you may enjoy it, parts of it, and then some other parts will be difficult or hard, but you will be learning from them. And what you said about the successful people that you have met that went through really difficult stuff, I don't think the difficult stuff made them successful, but it's about resilience.
True. Because it either makes you or breaks you.
Exactly. So we cannot control what is going to happen to us in some areas in life. You cannot control when some family member is going to die, or if you're going to be, I don't know, fired from a job or whatever. But then you can always go back to, what am I learning about yourself in this situation? What am I learning about myself? What is the value, for example, that I'm never, no matter how bad I am in life right now, how much I'm struggling, what is my pillar inside?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just gonna tell you.
Are they opening or something? They coming in?
Yeah, there's more people coming in now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's everything you're saying is just focus on yourself. How am I feeling? How am I feeling? How am I feeling? How am I feeling? And it reminds me of like these dreams of talking, dreams of, you know, when you're performing and it's going to be amazing. I think that, like, I was speaking to another girl, Sophia, who was also on the podcast, and she's a poet, and she was talking about how she loves performing and she's just so grateful that anyone will listen to what she has to say. And because she said to me, "Oh, you must love performing," and I was like, "No, not really." I was like, you know, I feel nervous when I do it. Once you know, like when I perform here, I don't feel so nervous because I know the place and I know the person who runs it, and I know that people are nice. But you know, when you perform new stuff, it's nervous. Sometimes I get in the flow when I'm on stage, and I quite enjoy being there. But when I'm actually performing stuff, I don't particularly enjoy it, I don't think. And then afterwards, you feel nice because it's like you get that reward of having put in loads of effort, done something that's uncomfortable, and then people are giving you nice feedback, which I think is healthy. I think because part of me thinks that, am I chasing that nice feeling afterwards? But then part of me also thinks, well, when things make you feel uncomfortable, to me, I want to do that thing because I don't want things to make me feel uncomfortable. So it's like exposure therapy, you know, and it's like, do it. And that's the reason why I first got into performing. So I was like, if I can get up on a stage and perform, then I can do anything, because that's like one of the most uncomfortable things you can do. And then it's like, make socializing more comfortable, because it's like, you just go talk to someone is fine, but sharing a private poem on stage or whatever is uncomfortable. But then it brought me on to thinking a lot about before I started doing it, it made me think a lot about narcissism and performing, because it was making me think, people that perform, you perform and you want the praise because that is part of performing. You know, maybe there are some people who just want to get it off their chest, but ultimately the praise is sort of what makes it worth doing. And then I'm like, is it narcissistic to perform? Because you are effectively focusing 100% on yourself, creating things often about yourself, performing them, and then waiting for praise about those things. That to me sounds narcissistic. What are your thoughts on that?
Don't be too hard on yourself, please. It's a very good point. It depends.
On if the person's a narcissist.
It depends. It depends. Where do you do it from? If you do it from, I just want the feedback, it's not narcissistic, but it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
So many people, imagine if you are a classical musician, all your life you have performed for someone to tell you that's right or that's wrong. And then they are telling you you are good or you are bad. So for me, there is something important. When you have your identity into place and you are happy with your own values, with who you are working through things, of course, but there is stability within and you feel inner solidity. And from that place, then that's like the anchor and that's in a deeper place. And then the next level will be the emotions that we were talking about and the kind of the needs. I need people, or I would like people to tell me that was a good job. Then that's fine. But the difference is when I feel and I think and I acknowledge I am good. I am a good person. Yeah. So I'm gonna put a very simple example. I am a good person. In general, I'm good. I can make mistakes. I take responsibility for them, but I am a good person. And then I'm gonna do a job, a task, performance, whatever. And then the performance can be good or bad. And if it's good, I'm going to have the praise and I'm going to welcome the praise. And I'm going to be, this feels amazing. Oh, this is cool. I did a good job. I'm happy. That was an effort. And you are going to be able to receive it, but it's not going to be like you are hungry for it. Because if it's bad, the performance, you're going to be, oh, that feels awful. I'm scared. I feel really tense. I ruminate for a little while. But deep down, I think I am a good person.
Yeah.
I did a bad job, but I am
okay.
a good person. So that's the difference. And that's why it's so important to separate identity, who you are, from what you do.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you are not going to put a lot of passion in it. That's going to be your main thing. But it's important to know who are you when you are not working? Who are you when you are not performing? Because if you have that sense of inner dignity, self-respect, some values, and you are authentic and you enjoy caring for people or whatever, that's intrinsic. When you have those values, you don't have to be showing them or proving them all the time. You know you are that way.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need that. Again, it's that sense of identity, that
Yes.
sense of who you are without anything else.
Yeah.
I suppose in my case, I feel compelled to do what I do. It's not like I want to do it. It's like I feel I have to do it. And I feel like, but I think that I that's what makes me think that it's probably not unhealthy. In fact, no, I don't think it's unhealthy. I don't think what I do is unhealthy because I think that I don't need the praise, but obviously it's nice. And it was actually, I think it's been very healing for me in the sense of I used to always search for instant pleasure, drink, drugs, sex, whatever, instant pleasure, instant gratification. And this is like doing poetry or performing is some of the slowest gratification because it might take a month to write a poem, then maybe you perform it 2 weeks later. So from the moment you start, it's like 6 weeks until you get some feedback. And I think that's healthy.
It's very healthy to postpone the reward.
To postpone reward. And I think that it's actually taught me a lot about doing small little bits each day as opposed to trying to do everything straight away. And it's, I suppose, like I've tried to copy that into the rest of my life. Yeah, I've got these big dreams and goals and ambitions or whatever. But the way I have to keep reminding myself is, Connie, you've got 60 years. 60 years, you know, maybe you can do one thing per year, and yeah, maybe you can do 60 cool things, but there's no need to do 60 things in 1 year. Even though I've written myself like 60 goals for the year, but I probably won't get all of those. But it's yeah, no, it's super interesting. It's nice being in this community of creative people because you see lots of strange people, and like I like being around the strange people
Me
because
too,
it makes me
definitely.
feel like I fit in somewhere. But also, I
Mm.
suppose that we are similar in the sense of I love analyzing people, and I
Yeah.
love it's the human aspect of everything that makes me
Mm.
interested, and the extremes of human emotion and where human experience can take you and the places you can go. And I just find it so crazy that the mind controls you without you really knowing what's going on until you develop a level of consciousness,
Mhm.
till you develop some understanding that you and your brain are not the same thing, that your brain is having all these processes going on in the background,
Mhm.
and they're controlling you, and your body's also controlling your brain, and
Mm.
it's going backwards and forwards, and you're kind of like this little middle person that often has absolutely no idea about what's going on with either of those things. You are literally just kind of like sat in this body that's just doing stuff that you're not aware of.
Mhm.
And then as you start to learn to become a little bit more aware of it and separate these things, life does become a lot easier.
Mhm.
And, you know, realizing that you are not your thoughts.
You are not your thoughts.
And that,
So important.
when I found that out like 2 years ago, shortly after that, my incessant thinking stopped.
Mm.
And like something that I'd never had any like I never had any moment of peace ever from just racing thoughts where I had no control over those thoughts and no understanding of it. And then when it stopped and I had some moments of peace and there would be nothing in my head, and I'd be like, whoa, like what the hell? Like this is something I've never experienced in like 27 years. And then actually at first I was a bit concerned because I was like, have I just become really stupid? Like, have I lost all of my brain power? And then after a while, like it freaked me out for a while because it's like, why am I not thinking anymore? Like, this must mean I am like, I've lost intelligence or something. But then I realized, wait a minute, I have so much more energy for everything else. And then it was revolutionary. I was like, why did I not know this? That these thoughts going on in your head, they're not you. They're just, they're your brain processing through things. And also your brain sometimes firing stuff at you just to make you have a response because your brain likes to feel adrenaline. So maybe your brain fires you with some anxious thoughts or it fires you with something sad just to experience an emotion because you're like hooked on the feeling of bad emotions. And so then it just creates this loop firing these things at you. And I'm like, okay, but my brain's just doing that maybe because I'm tired or I'm anxious or I've had too much coffee or whatever. That's not real. And
It's
then
not
it's like,
real.
it's not real. That's not me. And judging people as well. Like, when you judge people and you think something horrible about someone, and then you feel horrible because you think that you are horrible because you've thought
Mm.
something horrible. And then you realize, like, no, that's just your brain just doing that. That's not you.
Mm.
That's not you as a person. Like, you are a good person. You are a nice
No.
person, but you might just be having these horrible thoughts just because maybe that's what you've heard everyone else say, and your brain is just replaying a thought about someone it's heard somewhere else.
I said exactly that to my 7 years old niece a week ago because she was worried about a thought she had and she was feeling guilty and she
Mm,
couldn't identify what was going on. And because she knows I am a psychologist and well, she thinks I live in Hollywood, I have
mm,
to say.
mm,
And she was like, I am bad because I had this bad thought. And then I went through it with her and just like explained to her what thoughts were and emotions and everything else. And then we were scanning together and then the kind of You had that thought, but you didn't do anything. That was your choice. And no matter if you made a mistake, even, you are still a good person. You acknowledge that was a mistake. That is you.
Yeah.
That is you.
That's real.
And she kind of, she rested a little bit, and she was like, oh, Auntie, I really like this kind of tools. And I said, of course. Now you have the powers.
Yeah. It does feel a bit like a superpower when you start realizing these things, and it just means that things just don't impact you in the same way, because you're like, oh well, that's just my brain making up these thoughts. And like even something really small, that sometimes I used to wake up or I still do, and I'll be really angry. I'll be annoyed at someone in particular, or some stupid thing, and that used to then play through the day, and I wouldn't be able to get rid of that. Whereas now, I wake up, sometimes I'll be annoyed at someone, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're tired. You didn't sleep very well last night. You're tired. Okay." And then those thoughts stop, because you're like, I'm thinking this way. I'm negative because I'm a bit tired. So then, because I'm tired, my brain is just playing some negative thoughts, and my brain is just telling me you're tired.
Your boundaries are probably not so big, and you are more sensitive, more whatever. It's just the reaction. And no wonder how can you, when you were little, how can you go to sleep and just let all the thoughts stop if you think you are your thoughts?
Yeah.
You are just grabbing into your identity. If you think you are what you think, then you are not going to want to stop thinking, because that's you. And it's scary. It's like you stop existing in a way. So it's really scary to even sleep, to even fall back to sleep.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's partly why I used to hate sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably exactly why I used to hate sleeping. But it's like you are, when you're thinking like this, you are just focused 100% on your thoughts. And I think that it becomes very destabilizing, because you don't know who you are, and you're identifying with these thoughts. But when you're thinking loads of different things about, loads of opinions about different things, and thinking yes for this and no for this at the same time, then it's like, who am I? And you're thinking, maybe you're in a really bad place, and so you're thinking loads of horrible thoughts because you are feeling horrible, and so your brain is just reflecting how you're feeling with horrible thoughts. Then you're like, I'm a horrible person because I'm thinking all these horrible thoughts. And then you have like a personality breakdown, because you're like, who am I? Like, what's going on? Like, why all these thoughts? And then you're like, no, you're not your thoughts. Get yourself into a healthy state and you'll be okay. And it's like, oh, it's nice. So what would you say to someone who is becoming a DJ or a musician, and they are, or a poet or anything like that, and they are getting a little bit of success? What would you say to them as like Rosana's toolkit for staying healthy and sane?
I should have prepared that. Thanks God, I have a lot of touring hours. First, I will say, enjoy the present moment. Embrace the present moment with everything, with the not so positive, and with the success, and with all the kind of emotions that you have. And also get to know yourself. What are your thoughts, your emotions, your values, your limits, your boundaries? Invest in that. And be curious about what you don't know yet, without obsessing about it, of course. And take care of everything that connects you more with nature, with your animal part, with your human part, relationships, food, eating, sleeping, enjoying. So don't forget to have fun in your free time, because sometimes in this industry, everything kind of is mixed together. So going out to a show to see some other promoter or whatever doing business, that's not entirely free time.
Yeah.
So, and tell yourself the truth. So no matter if you are not doing so well, or you are worried, or not so sure, so safe, just be honest with yourself. Name what you are experiencing. Name it for yourself. And when you are struggling with anything, share it. Because we have this tendency to just want to share the perfectionism part, the perfect picture, and that disconnects us from people. So I just want to encourage everyone to be brave, to share who they are, but respecting their own boundaries. So it's not about oversharing and I tell everyone my traumas, or it's just speaking with whom you feel comfortable, and ask people how are they feeling when you are touring, when you are performing.
Okay.
I would say that.
Well, they are some wonderful tools. And yeah, so if we follow these present moment all the time, and enjoy yourself and share. So if we follow these, then people can rise up in a healthy, slow way, not necessarily slow, but a healthy way, and experience success if that's what they would like to experience. But they need to be enjoying the success at the same time. Otherwise, it's not success, is it? It could be financial success. It could be success in the amount of records you sell, but it's not success if you are not comfortable and happy. And so, how are you? How are you feeling?
I am feeling really grateful to be able to have this kind of conversation. And I feel very connected in values with you. And I I do feel part of this change in the world when we share from this authenticity with just everything, with the difficulties as well, and with what we struggle, and the way that we just talk or perform or help in our small scenarios. Um, I feel this is part of the human experience. So,
I think
yeah.
that I feel the same as you, just so grateful to be able to talk to amazing different people like yourself, and to just talk about what's working, what's not, what are we learning. Because, we only have a certain amount of time each day. And even if we stuff that time with learning, it's still not that much. Whereas if we can talk to people and they can say, oh, well, I've actually been listening to Huberman and I've actually been listening to some other thing, like what's the things you've learned from that, and what have you learned from your work, and what have you learned from your work, and then you share them and merge them together. And that's the reason for this podcast. It's the quest for wisdom. Like where we want to find wisdom. Like ultimately, I think that, to me, wisdom is the goal, and wisdom can't be a goal as such, because it's a journey, it's a process, and we'll constantly be getting wiser. But that's what I like. Each day you're better equipped, hopefully. If you learn a little bit each day, you're better equipped to deal with the day every day. And if you keep learning, keep moving forwards, then you end up, I always pictured myself, and I've told this to many people, that when I hit like 70, I want to walk around in a wizard's robe, with a staff, and I want to have a big long beard and wear a wizard's hat, and that's how I want to live my older life. But to be a wizard, I have to be wise.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm like earning my stripes, hopefully, just to be learning and get to that stage, and then just be really wise and be like a grandfather or a great uncle or something, and just be able to tell wise stories to my like tiny little grandchildren or grandnephews or whatever. I think that it's just it's so fun. It's so fun to be able to do that.
I will hope that we get to have a podcast then as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
In
hopefully.
60 years'
In 60
time.
years' time. And I think that even just the art of podcasting has
Mhm.
changed the world,
Yeah.
because it's allowed people to listen
Mm.
to genuine conversations. And I think that, in a 2, 3, 4 hour podcast, unless you're an amazing actor, you have to be quite authentic, or a politician or something like that. But you, your true self is going to show through. You can't keep it up for 3 or 4 hours in a podcast like that, of faking being someone you're not really. And I think that it's that authenticity. I suppose that's one other thing that I suppose is something that's so important for people that are trying to rise up in anything or any form of performing art, is to keep some sense of authenticity, because if you start trying to be someone else, that is going to be danger. Like, obviously there are actors who play characters and that's okay, but if you spend all your time where your actual self, you, is an act, then you'll break down eventually. And I think that being authentic and being okay with accepting your mistakes, and I actually think it's so important to show mistakes, because it's like, okay, I'm a mistake, I'm human, I'm sorry, this was wrong. And I think that it's something that, you know, you can say what you want about cancel culture at the moment, and maybe it's going too far, maybe it's not. But one good thing that has come out of it is that people, you see these really famous, well-known people who are doing public apologies for things. And I think that that is a powerful thing to see. It's like humbling. Okay, this person, like Joe Rogan, had to do it for some comments that he made. You know, he's like the most influential podcaster in the world. And he's there like, I'm sorry, I totally messed up on this. These were really wrong comments. And it's like holding your hands up, and it's like, okay, he's done that wrong. Maybe some people will hate him forever. Maybe some people will accept his apology, but it shows that that is what people do. That should do. That's what politicians should do. That is what leaders of anything should do. If they make a mistake, you know, they can own up to that mistake.
To own it.
Own that mistake. And
Own
that
it.
is owning a mistake and being able to say no to things and being able to say yes, and just all these little things of just makes you an authentic, genuine human being. That, I think, is what is inspirational when you see that in people. And that is how you be a role model. And I think that people that are in positions of power, they are role models for certain people. And I think that it's their responsibility to be as good a person as they possibly can, because they're being influenced. And it always makes me really angry when sports players do really bad, horrible things, you know, and they're assholes. And like, not just sports players, but it tends to be those because they're very famous. And then obviously they've become famous just from being good at a sport, which is what they like doing. And maybe they don't want to be famous, but they are. So obviously there's that human aspect, but it's like they are role models to so many young kids. And if they are seen doing bad things, that tells those kids that that's what a famous footballer does, and that's okay. And it's like there has to be this high level of accountability for these really strong role models, because that's what they are. And it should be like a bit of a prerequisite to, if you're going to be playing for England or Spain in the football or rugby or whatever it is, you have to be a good person and a good footballer, because if you're representing this country, you know, like, there can't be people that are going on there and saying racist comments and stuff like that on national TV and, you know, doing weird, horrible things, because it's like, that shouldn't be acceptable, no matter how good at what you're doing.
Those are our boundaries. Yeah.
Those are the boundaries.
I don't think we can push anyone to be a good person, but we can help them and just, you know, to see how does it feel when you are behaving from your values and from your core values.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, if you are pushing someone to be a certain way just because of social pressure or whatever, it's not going to be real. It's not going to have an effect on the real change.
Mm-hmm.
But if, for example, you just say to someone, okay, you can be lying all your life, but then when you are saying the truth, how does it feel? How do you sleep? What effects does it have in your relationships? Yeah. For me, it's more about helping them see in that way. And of course, we are in relationships with people. So if you do something that is bad for other person or society or whatever, then you are going to have feedback from it. And again, if we don't judge, it's much better, because you can say something that is really wrong or do something that is terrible. And no, we don't have to accept that. And at the same time, if we focus in how does it feel when you don't do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and for inviting people to just go to therapy, I always say, when many people ask me, how can I get my friend or band member or whoever to go to therapy? And
You
I say,
can't.
well, you go to therapy yourself.
Ah.
And then when they are like, oh my God, that kind of reaction, how do you do that? I went to therapy.
Hmm.
I used to struggle with anxiety or with whatever, and I went to therapy and I feel much better. I'm happier with my life, or I know myself better. Depending on your goal, you are gonna have one thing or another one in therapy. But yeah, just do it yourself, and then that's kind of contagious in a positive way.
Yeah.
When people are nice, and it feels better to be nice, and no, of course, with boundaries and respect and everything else. But it's going to invite other people to be that way. Yeah. We are social animals. We
Mm.
need to be seen in a way. And if you focus all your life in just doing something instead of being, that's the result that you get. Or
Hmm.
if your maximum goal is consumism and have many things and be famous and rich because you learned when you were little that was the quest for life, then you are not going to be a very nice person and also probably not very happy.
Hmm.
You are not going to enjoy everything because enjoying life is not there. I'm 100% certain. Yeah.
And are you, yeah, what you said is all very powerful stuff that I hope people are taking on board. Go to therapy yourself. And it is, again, it comes down to this. You are, if you want to fix the world, fix yourself first.
Mm.
And then people will see you and then they'll naturally want to copy because they'll be like, oh, this person's doing amazing. What are they doing? Oh, maybe they're meditating. Oh, maybe they're sleeping well. Maybe they've gone to therapy. Like, maybe I should do that.
Mm.
Like, and yeah, because you can't change anyone else. You can't force someone to go to therapy. You can't really, you can't impact someone else's life unless they're openly asking you to.
Mm.
And I think that's sort of the mistake that people make. But you have to sort yourself out first, really, don't you? And do you think you're in a good place?
I feel I am in a good place. Um, it hasn't been easy. I
Mm.
have moved so many times. I have changed my house and my things. I don't know how many times. And I used to struggle with anxiety when I was little for years and years and years. But in the end, I am grateful for everything that has happened in my life. And I'm still learning about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going to therapy and I'm still connecting with people and everything else. And of course, we carried as well a lot of stuff from our families. So
Yeah.
the changes that we are doing in our lives often is something that comes from generations ago.
Mm.
So I'm happy with my task and with everything that I'm going through. And when I struggle, I know where I can go and what I have to do or what should I reinforce and yeah, some goals. But I feel nowadays I'm just really enjoying my path. I don't know
Yeah.
what is the final goal, but I am enjoying my path a lot.
Ah.
And I am meeting amazing people. So it's just, and because I'm still open, when we met, it was that kind of a reaction. So I'm there in an event. I just had a panel before. I wasn't planning to go into the event, and I was there. You were there, and I thought, oh, see, he seems bored. I'm just gonna sit here and talk to him.
Yeah, I was helping with the ticketing, so I was just kind of sat there by the door.
Yeah.
And you came and started talking. I was like, oh, this is nice. Having like a little conversation with someone.
So that's the thing. So if I am working at a big festival and I came with a band or with whoever, or I'm part of the festival and I see a bouncer or someone at the bar, they seem whatever, and I always talk to them
Mm.
because it's really nice. That's what makes me feel connected and treating everyone the same. Yeah, I don't mind if you are cleaning at the festival or if you are headlining. For me, we are all at the same level. Yeah.
That's a lovely, a lovely way of putting it. And it is nice that, like, it is nice that, because there are people like you who are out noticing when someone's not looking right. And there's been many situations where I've always hated starting conversations with people. If someone talks to me, I will talk to them forever. But I hate making that initial conversation. But then it's nice that there are people like you who will see someone like me sat there bored, like waiting for people to come and take their tickets. And then you see that and you come over and start talking. I'm like, oh, this is so nice. It's nice that there are people doing that, because otherwise weird people like me would just be sat there not talking to anyone.
When I was living in London, that was one of my favorite things. The awkwardness.
Yeah.
The awkwardness. I don't think we have a word for it in Spanish.
No, because it's not very
We have
Spanish.
to, we have to use like 2 words to describe it. So well, of course, when I moved to London, I couldn't speak any English. So at first I was just smiling and no much else. But then the kind of, I could feel when people were feeling awkward.
Yeah.
And then for me, it's so easy. And I love to be just like in touch with people and without forcing, and of course, respecting. They may not even want to talk to me, and that's okay. That's fine as well. And if I feel rejected, I will go to a little corner, feel rejected for a little while, and then I will come back to do something else or to dance or whatever. But for me, it was amazing, because behind the awkwardness, there was this amazing human.
Yeah.
That couldn't talk to anyone because it was just difficult, that first step. So yeah, and with artists, that worked really well. So if you are very awkward and traveling around and you meet someone like me on the road somewhere, then it's kind of, I will start the conversation 100%.
Yeah, British people are so awkward.
I love England, the UK.
Like, there's something that when I stopped drinking and then I started realizing how awkward I was, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm so awkward. And I was like paranoid about being awkward. And then after a while, I realized everyone, like when I go to home anyway, like everyone is so awkward. And I think that's why people drink so much. Or, well, either they drink so much because they're awkward, or they're awkward because they drink so much.
Both.
And then it's both. And then they don't know how to communicate when they're not drinking. But then it's also the same in the creative scenes around here. Everyone is so awkward, and it's great because it's like you can all be awkward together.
Yeah.
But like, it's always really nice when I've got a few friends who are like really outgoing, and it's really nice being with them if it's like the 2 of us and we're going around, because they will start all the conversations, break all of the awkwardness away, and then everyone else can talk. And it's really great having those people around. But the type of people that will just talk about anything and just be like, walk over and be like, oh, the weather's warm today, and then just like start talking and just like make some random conversation. But they make people feel comfortable because they're so like just outgoing basically, and it is really nice being around those people. But it made me feel when I started realizing that everyone's awkward, it definitely made me feel better,
more connected,
because then I'm just like, when people, I think you can often misread British people especially as not liking you, when in reality they're just uncomfortable. And so it's also like I tend to overshare things, and I will just tell everyone everything because I don't know, that's just the way I am. But then some people get so awkward about that because they don't know what to say. And so now I try to be like I try to think of it a little bit more before I speak. And especially doing a podcast, I have to think before I speak, because otherwise people would just be like, what is this maniac talking about? Which has been nice. But yeah, that like going up to people and trying to kind of evaluate that person a little bit, and like trying to judge their reactions and tailor your conversation around that, as to not overwhelm that person with too much information or be too rude or something like that. But it's like that these differences in culture and the differences is very different. And I noticed that Spanish people are very open in general. They're very chatty, very open.
You should come to Sevilla.
Yeah. I've been to Sevilla. Yeah. People are just like so like, wow. And Latin America as well is the same. Like people are like that, but English people are definitely much more closed, even with performances as well. Like when I perform in England, it's much harder to make people laugh, way harder. And also, people are way less complimentary. And if they are complimentary afterwards, they are very awkward unless they're drunk. Whereas if I perform here, loads of people will come up afterwards and they'll be like really kind and say really nice things. And in England, hardly anyone does that, which is, I suppose, it's just cultural differences, isn't it? And I suppose what people are used to. But at first, it was like a bit. I was just like, oh my god, everyone hates me. Everyone hates me. Everyone thinks I'm shit. This is horrible. Like performing, and then no one's making any sound, and I'm like, oh god. And then sometimes people come afterwards. But that's one thing that I didn't mention before, was that praise that you get, that's something that is very uncommon, and it's quite difficult to get used to. Like when people first started coming up to me, although it's nice hearing praise, it would make me so uncomfortable when people are like, oh my god, that was amazing, like that's so good, I loved that. And I'd be there like dying on the inside, like because I don't know how to react to that. And I didn't know how, like, what do you say, like, oh thank you. And then someone said to me, just copy what girls do, because women are so good at complimenting each other and receiving it, like, oh, you look so nice today, oh thank you, so do you. And then I was like, oh, okay, when people compliment you, just say thank you. And if they've performed as well and you liked what they did, comment on something about that as well. And then I started doing that and I was like, this is actually easy. It still makes me feel uncomfortable, but then I suppose that's only a really small level, and it brings it back to this thing again. If there's thousands and thousands of people screaming at you,
And you are there because of them
and
and because you want the praise, but then you cannot stand it.
yeah, it's like it's really weird.
Yeah.
It's like every time I think about it, I'm like, why am I performing? But then no, like I know it's good, and it has changed my life in so many ways, and I do love it, and I love it but hate it at the same time. I suppose it is a little bit like exercise, you know, like I
Yeah.
love exercising. The thought of exercising is often not nice. When I'm doing it, I'm like really happy with myself, and it makes you feel really good, and it's a healthy reward. But I suppose it is like that, you know, and but yeah, I suppose it would, as I become more comfortable, I imagine I will enjoy it more, because at the moment it feels like work. And it is work, I suppose, because it's a lot of effort to do it. But then as it becomes more comfortable, it becomes more relaxed. Then it becomes more fun,
Like meditation.
like meditation and like exercise. Like the
Mhm.
first time you go running, is every step is painful and hell, and
After
then
a
after a
pandemic,
while,
just trying to go running.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, when you receive praise from the outside, I feel it's important to just check, where is it landing? Is it in your thoughts about yourself? Is it in your emotions, like feeling grateful or uh, mm, really tense, or whatever? Or it's just like, are you receiving it and feeling grateful for it? Because that will be a deeper place. But I can understand completely. When you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, I should check that on myself as well. Because in a festival in autumn, I received an award. I wasn't expecting it, and it was
Mm.
really nice because it was from people I really care about, and it was female in the music industry in my favorite conference in Spain, and I felt so moved. I cried on a stage and
Mm.
everything, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna show my emotions. And at the same time, the first thing I said, I to my friends, and then also in public, and then when I was in my house even, I was, this is very meaningful for psychology in music. So I was kind of putting a screen between the award or the recognition and myself. I was like, oh, this is for psychology in the music industry. And I'm so happy. I'm so proud. I'm so happy for the industry to have this space there. But at the same time, I was like, am I really avoiding to receive that this is a nomination that they did to what I
Mm.
do? And yeah, I think I struggle a little bit with that as well. It's easier to receive criticism
Yeah,
because
it can be.
we are more used to it
True.
than to just be seen in you did something well and you did something different. Um, and I see your efforts. So see how different you did a good job, and you are great, or you have this value, and I see you there. And yeah, it feels it's strange. It's good to scan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed there's something that I always used to do. If someone complimented me, I would bounce it. So
Mm.
they would say like, "Oh, you're like that poem you did was amazing," and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, well, I that's something I've been working on for a month, or something like that," and it's not really an appropriate. Doesn't make sense.
It
Like you're not.
doesn't enter.
It doesn't enter, and it's not really responding to what they're saying
Mm.
because that's not the response for that's good. You just say, "Oh, thank you," or "I'm
Mm.
glad you liked it,"
Mm.
or something like that. But it bounces off. But then it would also lead me sometimes to sounding really arrogant, which is the opposite of what I'm feeling and the opposite of what I want. But I'd say something, just some stupid answer like, "Oh, that was amazing what you did," and like, "Oh yeah, like it was actually quite easy," or something like that. Like that's not even true, and just
Yes.
like just like bouncing off, it makes the person then is like, "What?" Right? And I used to do it all the time and bounce off and these things, and afterwards I'm like, "Why did I say that?"
Imagine if we could just say, "Oh, this is nice, but it makes me feel so nervous when I receive a compliment."
Yeah, yeah,
That would be even, more
yeah,
authentic in a way.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, okay, now I'm gonna shake for 3 minutes, and I
yeah,
will
yeah,
get back to you with an answer
yeah.
just after that. Yeah.
That's what I like. That type of thing. I because there has to be like with self-deprecating a bit like that. There has to be sometimes people will get on stage and then they'll be really rude about themselves and say like, I'm so rubbish and all these things. And in comedy, it's common to take the piss out of yourself. And I think that there has to be a little bit of a balance with that. There has to be a strong balance with that. But what I do quite like is when sometimes people get on the stage and they'll say, "I'm so nervous,"
Mhm.
because it shows to everybody else. Maybe there's someone in the audience that is thinking about performing one day, but they're too scared because they think that people get on the stage and then it's all just fine. And then it's really nice, I think, when people are like, "I'm so nervous,"
Mhm.
because then it might give someone else the motivation to say, "Oh, okay, well, she's nervous. That's
Mhm.
fine. I'm not weird because I'm nervous." And maybe they'll get on. And I think that this level of, again, authenticity, I think it can be so encouraging for people to be
Mhm.
like, "Look, I'm doing this, okay, but it's not easy.
Mhm.
But I'm trying my best, and we feel these feelings. And if you
Mhm.
do it, you're probably going to feel nervous as well, and that's fine. But you won't feel nervous forever." Um,
And we feel nervous about the stuff that we care about.
yeah, and sometimes the
So,
things that are the most important.
and we feel more stress about the difficult conversations with people we care about.
Mm, yeah, 100%.
So, again, what you were saying about the exposure,
Mm-hmm.
something that feels difficult. Okay, why does it feel difficult? I really care about this person. So, just a very simple example, when we have to set up boundaries to a friend, very close friend, and we are scared that they are gonna not like it or reject it or get angry at us. So the first mechanism may be, I'm just not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's the risk? If I don't say to a friend, look, if I really care about a friend and she asks me, I want to talk to you today, I had a really bad day. And if I am scared of saying no, I'm gonna say, okay, let's talk. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm joining, or however you say it. Or I can seem really bored or like I'm not paying attention. But I had 6 sessions with patients today, and I'm
Mm.
tired, and I don't know, I have my period, and I'm not in a good state for listening in that moment. But if I connect with, I really care about my friend. I really, really care about this relationship. And for me, it's difficult to set up boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to try to do it because I really want to have a healthy relationship with this person. and I want to connect with my authenticity as well. So I can just say, hey, I think this is a really important matter, and I really care about what you are feeling now. But today has been a long day. I don't think I am in the right state of mind for listening to you properly.
Yeah.
So what about if we talk tomorrow? We can have lunch or whatever. So that person on that day, maybe they will call someone else, or they would have another tools. Trust that person. They have skills for surviving to feeling angry. Yeah. And then the next day when you are with that person, or another time where you are talking about something, they are gonna know that you are there because you want to.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to, you are gonna be really authentic and connecting with that boundaries and capacity to listen to your own body and emotions and say, actually, no, I'm not coming to that show. Oh, yeah, today I'm here because I really want to. So just to be there because you really want to, because you are there, because you care, and because you trust their capacity to handle their own emotions. And you can say, and I'm sorry if this makes you feel whatever. That's the compassion.
Yeah, it's these interactions where it's having the right vocabulary to be able to explain to someone, because if that person's reaching out to you, they're probably in a vulnerable state. So you have to be able to explain it to that person in a way that they're going to 100% understand. Because if you just say like, no, sorry, not today, they're probably going to think, oh, she hates me. She doesn't give a shit. Just doesn't want to listen to me. And it's like, no, it's about explaining it in a way that their anxious mind can't misinterpret,
and allow them to misinterpret as well. But the trick with that, again, going back to feelings, when you are able to name your feeling, I feel, even if it's tired, overwhelmed today, then you are owning, you are sharing what you are feeling, and you are not talking about the external situation. You are talking about yourself, and you are opening in a different level. And if you name as well what they are feeling, I'm sorry that you are feeling that way, then you are connecting in that level, the limbic area, the chest, the belly, what you feel within. And communication is easier. Don't try to over explain, because then the conversation can get messy.
Yeah, true.
If you are trying to convince someone and they're like, I don't care, I'm just angry, or I'm just sad. I'm sorry that you are sad. That's more important than the understanding.
True.
Yeah.
True. I saw a psychologist a couple of years ago, and he gave me an emotion wheel,
That's
which I'm
my
sure you're
favorite.
familiar with.
My favorite second session for everyone.
Yeah. And so is it 5 or 6 main emotions in the middle? So do you know what they are?
I mean, there
There are
are
lots of different ones.
the one I have in English actually has a million of different options.
English has a lot of
And the one that I
vocabulary.
have in Spanish is just like a flower, and yeah, kind of anger, sadness, happiness, it's all that. So the main thing with emotions is they start with two main movements. Either I am attracted to something or I am rejecting something.
Okay.
Happiness, enthusiasm, love, wherever you feel you want more of that in a way. You feel motivated to get closer to that person or element or thing. And then when something is scary or makes you angry, yeah, in a way you are kind of pushing back. And from there,
that is
everything else.
Yeah, because the one I've got is in Spanish, and I think it's 5.
Is this one,
on
yeah.
Yeah.
Someone posted it. I'm just gonna put it out.
It's like I think it was like rage,
I'll show you.
sadness.
In the middle, yes, just someone posted it from one of the classes this from Thursday. Aki.
Oh, my one's a little
So
bit.
it's
My one's more like an actual wheel, but what's
ecstasies with this enthusiasm, admiration, terror, to be surprised, sad, hate or sadness or anger, and being vigilant, alert. Yeah, that's it's kind of the main ones, but yeah, like happiness or trust, all that. They come. It's really nice to have just something visual.
Yeah.
to check what are you feeling and just to name it, because that gives the prefrontal cortex access to the limbic area, direct connection.
Yeah, and just knowing they existed. I think my one had 6 on the middle, and then they split into each of those split into 2,
Yes.
and then each of those split into 2.
Yeah.
So you would end up with like 40, I think.
Yeah. I will send you the English one.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it.
Yeah. And then so there's about 40 on the outside, like the outside rings. No, 40 in total, sorry. And then just having that there, and then just realizing, okay, actually, let's just use vocabulary and explain the specific thing I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Like, what is my feeling about this? Like, well, I'm annoyed, but I'm also sad.
Yeah.
At the same time, because it can come from a different section of the wheel. It's like, okay, I'm annoyed, I'm sad, or I'm
surprised.
Surprised. It could be a lot of them, and then just knowing that those different ones exist, and then you can start thinking about what you're feeling. Because anger, I found, is usually there's emotions behind the anger. I find that anger is the result of other emotions that come before that. So like you feel rejected, or you feel scared maybe, or you feel hurt, and then anger comes after that. You know, it's the result of these other things. So it's like you need to really understand the real thing you're feeling that's causing these reactions.
Naming everything that you are feeling within. And it can be mixed together. It can be one thing first, the other one. And if you just notice how when you are focusing in that, you have been for a while, not even thinking about what was going on in the outside. Then you are turning the attention within, and you are like, actually, that was the situation, but this is my inner reaction. And what is going to be easier in a way to handle? The external situation or what is going on within?
True.
If we have the tools, of course.
True.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to ask you one final question. But I know that you have things to do today. I could talk to you all day. I'm really enjoying this conversation.
But we are going to do this in 60 years time.
Yeah, true.
We have a date.
We'll hopefully get you before the 60 years mark. Definitely. Maybe for another one. But before we finish, I'm going to say, this is the Quest for Wisdom podcast. What are your words of wisdom for the audience?
Silence.
By silence, you mean meditation, right?
Yeah. I will say you have everything you need within yourself already. That's
an amazing piece of wisdom, and it's strange you should say that, because for my birthday 2 years ago, one of my good friends, he wrote me a card. He's from Colombia, and he wrote me a card, and he said, so it said, it's a quote from Plato, and it's like, the beginning of any journey is the most important and the most courageous. I think I've ruined that. But then he also said, remember, everything is within you. I've just ruined that Plato quote. Sorry,
Don't worry.
Sorry, everybody.
I like your version better. That was a very good remix.
Remember that everything is within you. So that's a lovely reminder of that, and that's a lovely word of wisdom. Everything is within. And also, before we finish, I have one little present for you.
Oh my God. Now I'm going to name my emotions. I feel enthusiastic.
Oh, enthusiasm. So it is a plastic bag.
It's from Tesco. Sorry, that was.
It is a Quest for Wisdom T-shirt.
Oh my God! Oh, I love it.
So we could be matching. Woohoo.
Please, I'm gonna wear it now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been amazing to have you on. And give me a hug.
Yes.
Ah.
Oh.
That was amazing. Thank you, everybody, for
you.
this. Goodbye. Wave at the camera. Thank you for listening to the Quest for Wisdom podcast with your host, Connor Monaghan. If you enjoyed the episode and would like to support the show, then please like it, subscribe, and leave a review on whichever platform you are using. This small act is a massive help and is hugely appreciated. You can find more information about all of our guests on thequestforwisdom.com and follow us at The Quest for Wisdom on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for exciting updates. We also have a Patreon account for anyone who would like to contribute towards the running of the show. Finally, I would like to thank the Comedy Clubhouse in Barcelona for allowing us to record here and for their ongoing support. If you are ever in Barcelona, make sure to check it out for daily shows of comedy and performance art in English. Farewell for now.